So yeah, we're just gonna go through the tiers and weapons. They're actually already placed because like I said, I did this on stream a few days ago and the weapons are already there. I'll probably go from lowest to highest because it's just easier to scroll up. So as you can see, the D tier is already here. All these weapons are just extras or duplicates of weapons that are already there. So this can be my weapons tier list for 2023. All the weapons that have come out by January 2023. First, we're going to start with the worst, or weapons I think are some of the worst in the game. Basically, you should only ever really run these if you are wanting to, like you're wanting to challenge yourself or something like that. But all these weapons are just outperformed heavily by a lot of other weapons. They put you at a disadvantage if you bring them in most of the time. Very rarely will they, will a Nagant P outperform like an officer pistol, like a regular officer or something like that. Very, very rarely, and it takes up like a quartermaster slot. So let's start from the bottom. This is the machete. I think it is the worst melee in the game. Basically your knife, heavy knife, all that kind of stuff that you use as a tool is better than the machete. Like, it doesn't hit the door frames as much. It does about the same amount of damage. The machete doesn't even one shot unless you headshot. So it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. They definitely need to do something about it because all the other melee at least has some kind of spot in the game, but machete, it feels completely outclassed and obsolete even to non-weapons, which is like, damn, it's a hard place to be as a weapon. So yeah, definitely the worst thing in the game in my opinion. Next up are the Springfield Compacts. For anyone who doesn't know, this is Springfield Compact Striker. I think this is just Springfield Compact and this is Springfield Compact Deadeye. All of them are one shots, and then you got to reload them. So you get one shot. If you don't headshot or something like that, you got like a 8-second reload. It's a decent amount of time. Most of the time you'll get shot in the meantime if you don't have direct cover around you. And it doesn't have good muzzle velocity. It doesn't have good damage carry. It doesn't have good pen. It doesn't have anything really. All right, next up, we got Schofield P. It can't be fanned. It's a medium pistol rifle stock. It's a medium pistol stock, and it doesn't do anything well. It doesn't have a good fire rate. It can two-tap, but most of the weapons can two-tap. Like almost every weapon in its preferred range can two-tap. Doesn't have the best pen. Doesn't have the best damage carry. It's okay. Schofield itself has quite a bit of damage for a pistol, which is nice, but the slow muzzle velocity, slow fire rate, and then being a medium slot just puts it down here where you don't really want to bring this. And if you're going to bring a quartermaster build, there's just so many better options up ahead. Same goes with these. These are head clicker weapons though. That's why I put it above some of these other ones. These weapons right here have very little sway. They can get high velocity. One of them even has a scope. So they can pack a little bit of punch. They're still not as good as all the weapons up here. They're still lacking something that would make it phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? It's just, there's nothing outstanding about these pistols. They're just very straightforward, except their sway is pretty good. Like I said, if you point at someone and they're within a certain amount of, meters from you and you have high velocity on it, you can do some damage, but the base damage of these pistols is pretty low, so you end up having to 3-tap a lot if you don't headshot, and it's slow fire rate, just all around not very good. Schofield Brawler kind of falls in the same issue this has, except it's a small slot weapon, which means it's usable in a lot more builds. That's why it's kind of put above that, but it's still worse than pretty much every other Schofield listed except this one. So you kind of want to just bring in the other Schofields. It doesn't have a good fan, in my opinion. I don't even know if you can, yeah, I think you can fan it, but it doesn't have as good of a fan as the other ones. And yeah, let's move on. That would be the D tier. I think all these weapons are very, very trash. There's some weapons that don't cost a lot that are pretty good. These weapons don't really cost that much, and I think Crytek balanced that pretty well, where these weapons are pretty garbage. I think most of these weapons should be like basically free. The only ones that I don't think is maybe these top ones could be a you know, chump change, but like these weapons right here should just be free. Like you should be able to take these in every time if you want to for a 0 cost. They're so bad. This is the Combat Axe. It can one-shot players, and it puts your arms up in a way that kind of blocks certain hitboxes. So it's harder for like crossbows and stuff like that to hit the hitbox to stop the person with the axe charging them. So it's honestly not that bad. It is usable. If you flash someone and then you charge them with an axe, you can get a kill pretty easily as long as they don't get a lucky shot on you. It's definitely feasible, but it's not as feasible as you can see as like in the B tier, we have the Cav Saber. It takes less stamina, has a further reach, etc., etc. So it's feasible. It's just not as good as some of the other melees. Over here, we got the regular Nagant. It's just the base pistol. There's not much to say. It's okay, but it has low damage. Its fan is really, really good without high velocity. With high velocity, it kind of spreads out a lot. So I would recommend, if you are going to try to fan it with regular ammo. And then still, you're probably going to have to 3-tap someone. But that aside, it's a decent backup, a cheap backup for like a Winfield. If you're, you know, someone who takes a lot of Winfields, the compact Winfield, I should say. Outside of that, it's one of those cheap weapons you bring if you don't have anything else. Outside of that, it's just like whatever. Right here, we got the medium Romeros, sawed-off Romeros. One is the Romero hatchet, and one's the regular. Romero hatchet's better than the regular because you can shoot, and then you can swing. So if 2 people are coming through a doorway or something, it allows you to at least have an option on hand to deal with both instead of just one, and then have to swap. They can hurt quite a bit with like slugs and stuff, and they're decent backups, but they're just not as good as some of the alternatives, which would be some of the other sawed-off shotguns. We'll get into that a little bit later. We got 2 of the silent weapons, Sparks silencer and Winfield compact silencer. Both of these are okay, but this one ends up... Well, let's first talk about Sparks. It's a one-shot rifle. It's a very slow reload. It does decent damage if like decently close, but the silencer makes its headshot range worse. It makes its damage carry worse. It slows down the bullet. So it's basically worse in all ways to the regular Sparks, except that it's quote-unquote silent. But if they shoot it with like decently close to you, you can still hear it. So the only time this is decently effective is if it's far away. And if it's far away, it's hard to hit the shot because it's so slow muzzle velocity, all that kind of stuff. And if you're far away, you might as well just have the regular Sparks, because there's chances are that they'll end up locating where the bullet came from, look in that direction, and see you. The only time they won't is if you're deep in a bush or something. So you can play very stealthy with these weapons if you want, but in a straight up 1v1 fight, anything like that, I think these weapons put you at a disadvantage to their regular counterparts because their muzzle velocity is slow, which gives you less chance to hit, and overall they're just not as reliable damage wise, headshot wise, everything. Fun weapons, just not that reliable. Winfield silencer is a little bit better because you get a lot of shots. You can lever with it, so it has a close range option, stuff like that. But once again, it suffers from what the Spark silencer suffers from, where if it's up close, you can still hear it. You still hear that and you can kind of know where it's from. And if it's levering, you definitely know where it's from. That said, high velocity on this isn't too bad. These are all the compact Winfields. I kind of put them on the same level. You could put this here, or you could put this here. Doesn't really matter where you want to put it. I put it here because both silent weapons right next to each other. But these are kind of slow, but they get high velocity. And one thing these have going for them that this doesn't is they are medium slot Winfields. These are all the sawed off Winfields, or half stock, or whatever you want to call them. They are a 2-slot weapon, which means you can take this and then quartermaster and take something else like a shotgun, like a main 3-slot shotgun or a nitro or something. And that gives you some surprise factor with these, where this one is a 3-slot weapon, so you don't have that option. It can get high velocity, it can lever, the levering's not that good, but overall, that surprise factor is enough to kind of not make it useless, but it's still not as valuable as some of the weapons coming up. I think there's some stronger surprise factors out there for quartermaster slots and whatever you want to say. So I'm going to put this down in C. Yeah, good, but not remarkable. We got the Bornheims. They're 3 taps. You literally need to hit someone 3 times unless you headshot them. It's got very small range. It's pretty expensive. Honestly, I don't think there's too much you could do to this weapon to change it, because if you make it a 2-tap, it'd be too strong. So I think the 3-tap is kind of where it needs to be. But yeah, it's just in a weird place of you give it a little bit more damage and it becomes overpowered. You put it where it's at and it's a little underpowered. I'd rather this weapon stay underpowered than overpowered, because there's already a ton of spam in the game. That said, you can't fan these weapons or anything like that. So there's already a lot. Like, this weapon can fire faster with fanning than these weapons, and it can potentially 2-tap. So, like, I don't know. Maybe you make these a 2-tap and then just increase their price or something. But the Bornheims, these Bornheims in particular, are the worst of the bunch. This one's better. It gets more shots before you have to reload. This one has a slightly quicker reload, but you have less shots. I would almost always go with this one instead of this one, which is the Bornheim Extended. But overall, right now, I would say they're a little underpowered compared to a lot of the other options we got on the table. We got Chain Pistol here. Most people know exactly what you do with this thing. It can headshot decently well. Like, if you're just trying to ADS, you get a ton of extra shots too compared to the regular conversion pistol. And it has a decent fan, but the fan compared to all the other fannings in the game just is extremely unreliable compared to, like, let's say regular conversion. This is regular conversion right here. You're very much relying on RNG with this weapon unless you're specifically going for the shot. With FMJ, it's not bad to try to pin someone through like a building or something. You get a bunch of shots to try. Dual wielding is pretty bad compared to some of the other dual wields, so I wouldn't recommend necessarily dual wielding it unless you're just trying to meme. But yeah, it's a unique weapon in comparison to all the other weapons. So it could go a little higher, possibly. It just depends on how you rate the RNG, how the hunt gods are being kind to you or not on a specific day. Like, if the hunt RNG gods are on your side, it could be up here. If they're not on your side, it's definitely down here. That said, we got Scotfield coming up next. Just the regular Scotfield 77, I think. I don't think there's anything special with this one. Regular Scotfield's got a really good fan. It's got decent pen. It's got better pen than this, unless this has FMJ. And you can put FMJ on it. So it's got really good pen, and its fan is pretty accurate, pretty tight spread, pretty reliable, pretty fast. And it reliably 2-taps. So the fanning itself is what's putting it in this position. But even without the fan, it's pretty good at least getting body hits at decently close range, which is exactly what you want from a backup weapon, your single slot weapon. So it's not the best weapon to bring, but it's definitely far from the worst. It's definitely better than these because of fanning in particular. If you don't bring fanning, it's just super lackluster. With fanning, it has potential, but all the other pistols' potential is a little bit higher. Slow muzzle velocity, slow rate of fire. This is the Lamont Carbine. I rate it lower than the Lamont Pistol, which is a single slot. This is a 3-slot weapon. It recently came out. It can't fan. It's shotgun ammo, or whatever you want to say. Like, the shotgun portion of this weapon is unreliable. I've slugged with it many times, and sometimes it kills, sometimes it doesn't. The muzzle velocity is pretty slow. The damage doesn't carry very far. It's just all around a very lackluster 3-slot weapon. If it wasn't 3 slots, if it was like a quartermaster weapon, you know, like a 2-slot, medium slot kind of weapon, I think it would be better. It would be a lot better, but it's not. So, yeah, I think they need to tweak some numbers with this. It just came out. This is literally the newest weapon in the game, one of the newest. And yeah, I see some tweaks coming for it in the future. Right now, it is very lackluster compared to all the other weapons. If they want to keep it that way, they can. But there's just no reason to run it, even over the other Lamont, because the other Lamont is fannable. The other Lamont's slug, in my opinion, is pretty, is about the same. Like, the RNG between slugging someone with this and slugging someone with this is about the same in my experience, and in a lot of people's experience that also commented on this weapon, played with this weapon, where it's like, sometimes you can get kills outside of this slug's range. It's just pretty rare. Literally, people will be standing still. You shoot directly at them, and they're still living at, like, it just seems super close range. It's probably like 7 meters, and then at like 12 meters there's literal clips. Like, I have clips where at like 7 meters, 12 meters, I'm aiming right at them with the slug, and I shoot directly at their chest, and they don't go down. And it's like, I don't know. I know this can one-shot slug at around like 7-ish meters, so it's like, it feels weird. It feels weird where you're using slugs with a long weapon and it just doesn't do anything. So this Lamont feels around the same, except it's a single slot, which means you can bring a different primary and still basically get this weapon. And it can fan, which this weapon can't. So, in my opinion, the Lamont pistol is better than the Lamont carbine. Schofield Swift is basically just like the Schofield. It's got all the pros of the Schofield, except it reloads faster, and you can't reload one bullet at a time. You have to reload the entire chamber, so it's better for fanning, in my opinion, than this one. For taking single shots at like zombies and whatever, this one definitely competes, and you'll end up wasting a little extra ammo on this if you go for the reload. But overall, the reload on this is very quick, and it allows you to fan, and let's say someone else is coming through the door. Like, you fanned one and someone else is coming from another door into the building you're in, or something like that. You can reload generally. You can reload quick enough before that other person reaches you to then fan them completely with all 6 bullets. Like, you don't need to fan 2 and then fan 2 unless you see that they hit. Like, you can literally just fan through the wall all 6, wait till you get that kill, or just wait till the smoke is cleared, then go over and fan another 6. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can, it's just crazy how fast this gun reloads. It's got a good fan, and it reliably 2-taps. So, great fanning option. Outside of that, little lackluster, slow muzzle velocity, slow fire rate, kind of brings it down a tier. Spectre Bayonet, there's really no reason you should bring this over regular Spectre unless you're just having fun or want to bring a bayonet. The Spectres already fire multiple shots, which means the bayonet's a little less valuable. See, like down here, you have the melee. This only fires once. Spectre, for those who don't know, this version of Spectre lowers how much damage its slugs does. It lowers how far it can one-shot kill with its buckshot. Like, it just is a worse version of Spectre, but you get a bayonet. And the bayonet's just never really used. So unless you like the skin or something, no reason to bring this. This right here is the Romero Alamo. The Romero Alamo is a little clunky. It's decently new. It's not as new as the carbine, but it's decently new to the game. It is overall a pretty solid weapon for like starting out, or if you want to go with a cheap option. But in my opinion, from what I've found, the regular Romero is not only cheaper, but also just a little bit more reliable. Not necessarily in the shot, but the regular Romero allows you to bring two different ammo types, so you can swap between them. You can, bring buckshot if you want it, and slugs, and use them in situations that are better or worse for different situations, or penny shot if you want to kill bosses with slugs. All kinds of stuff with the regular Romeros. This one, you can only take one ammo type, but once all the ammo is gone and you have to reload, it takes forever to full reload. Like, it takes a long time, and to even stop the reload takes a long time. So basically, you want to make sure everybody's dead before you have to reload, or you need to make sure you're in a safe space to reload for fucking hours, it seems. And then in between shots, it's really clunky. Like, if you shoot and then you swap to like an uppercut or something on the side, then you shoot with that and swap back to the Alamo, it does the weird reload animation thing that slows down your next follow-up shot. Definitely not my favorite Romero, and I don't think it's as good as the base, because the base never needs that long reload. It's always the exact same reload every time. You can bring multiple ammo types, and it's cheaper. All right, let's get into the B tier. This is the B tier right here. For everyone who does not know, the B tier, I think, let me see. Yeah, B tier is basically mid tier. So these are the weapons I think are pretty fair within the context of all the weapons in the game. I think they're reliable. They can get the job done, but they're just not the top of their class. They're not the best option available in the game. There's better options out there if you have more money to spend or anything like that. But these weapons are very reliable, and generally what most of the cheap builds, if you're looking for like a cheap good build, this is kind of where those weapons are going to lie. All right, so we're on to B tier. We got the Cav Saber. I'm pretty sure it matches the Bomb Lance with its range. So I'm pretty sure the Bomb Lance and Cav Saber have the furthest melee range. It doesn't take a ton of stamina to keep like heavy swinging with it. And the heavy swing is a poke like in the middle of your screen, so it's really easy to aim. And it one-shots. It has potential to one-shot a hunter. So all that combined makes it a really quick melee follow-up if you get caught off guard, if someone's very close coming at you with another melee, like let's say they're trying to knife you or axe you or bomb lance you or something like that. This has a very high chance of trading with them, at least, if not outperforming them outright. Like a knife coming at you, you can outrange it. An axe coming at you, you can outrange it. So, and it's very quick. Like, as soon as you let go the release of the heavy, the hitbox seems to come out very, very quickly compared to a lot of the other weapons. But so there's, for whatever reason, Saber seems to outperform just about every melee in the game except Bomb Lance. Very reliable if you want to go melee option. You bring a couple flashes with this weapon. Pretty strong, pretty strong. These are the Romeros. I already talked about the Romero Alamo, or I talked about them a little bit during when I was talking about the Romero Alamo. But basically, they're just a very cheap, powerful one-shot shotgun. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. Fun to play, but it can only shoot once. This one's the Talon, this one's the regular. You can put them like this if you want to kind of match this, which is this one has potential to kill 2, while this one doesn't, without having to reload. The only problem with it is this melee is garbage. Like, this melee, you can charge up pretty quick, it does a lot of damage, all that kind of stuff. This one is a very long charge up. It's a very long time from when you release the charge up to when the hurt box comes out. And it's a diagonal, or it's like comes at a slant, so it can hit like a lot of the doorways and stuff that's around you. It has a pretty fast, or I shouldn't say fast, but a very like wide arcing attack. That said, it does do a lot of damage if it actually connects. They upped its damage a little while ago, and it does a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage to like bosses and stuff, so I'd probably put this here just because PvE it kind of deals with a little bit better. But PvP wise, these weapons are on very equal terms because this is super unreliable when it comes to PvP. Like most of the time, if you didn't kill him with your shot, you're not going to kill him with this. And if there's two people coming through, you killed one with the shot, they're probably going to kill you with whatever they have before you kill them with this. So they're kind of on very equal terms. Play with whatever one you like more. If you're trying to figure out which one's better, it's very debatable. All right, next up we got the regular conversion. The reason why regular conversion's here is it's got a solid fan. It reliably 2-taps. It's got good irons. It can headshot at decently close ranges. Has FMJ, so it allows it to pen a ton of stuff and fan through a wall and kill a lot of people when they don't expect to get hit or killed or headshot. All around, very solid choice for a pistol. Doesn't cost that much. Pretty low price, and just all around your basic pistol that does everything you want a pistol to do, just not fantastic. Like it's not phenomenal at any one thing. It's just average at just about everything. And so it's going to be in the B tier, low B tier. Pretty good all around. I'd recommend you give it a try if you're looking for a pistol to mess around with that isn't all the higher tiered pistols. Next up, we got the Silent Nagant. I definitely rate it higher than this because it allows you to move around maps faster, more silently, to where other teams don't know where you are. It has an okay fan. It gets high velocity. It's a good partner for like Sparks, Martini, like those kind of weapons that do a lot of damage because you don't really need a lot of damage follow-up. You just need to hit them with something. So generally speaking, a high velocity, silent Nagant will finish the job after you hit someone with like a Sparks pistol or a Sparks or something like that. So great option to back up, great cheap option to back up a lot of the powerhouses in the game. Next up, we got a lot of medium slot shotguns. The reason they're all here is because they're all multi-shot and they can all get slugs. So every single one of these can get slugs and means they're really good backups for rifles. If you're carrying a Winfield, Carabiner, Mosin, I'm thinking of like high ammo rifles, even like a Sparks, Martini, like they're not bad options even for those. Because once again, you hit someone with like a Martini or a Sparks, it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing next, you just need something. You just need to hit them with something. It could be like a Derringer, it doesn't really matter that much. So that said, they're great pocket shotguns to have an emergency if someone gets a little too close when you have a rifle, and it allows you to trade with a lot of other shotgunners. So like if someone has a main Crown and King with slugs and they're coming around the corner on you, you can whip out one of these shotties and try to slug them or just try to buckshot them, and there's a decent chance you trade. Depends on how far they are, but there's a decent chance. So they're good medium slot weapons, but they only work with Quartermaster to have with a long, and needing traits to be decent is why some of these things are lower. It's the same thing with a lot of the weapons that I said are good with fanning. Like you need a trait to make it better or to even put it on your build, and that's why this stuff is kind of lower, because there's weapons that do a lot of the stuff these do without even needing traits. Next up, we are going with Springfields. The reason why these are here is because the reload isn't horrible. They have good, decent irons. They shoot straight, decently high muzzle velocity, and do considerable amount of damage. They don't have a ton of pen, and the damage doesn't carry very far, but you can put like poison on them. And poison with these things is very annoying if you don't have an antidote shot. You get hit by it, you're left with like 20 health, 15, 20 health, and you can't heal. So, I mean, zombies are a threat, like armoreds and meatheads. Meatheads are a huge threat because they'll hone in on you because you're poisoned. There's just a lot of situations where these weapons can outperform a lot of these weapons down here, especially if you play it in the absolute best playstyle, which would be never really to get close with these weapons. You can get close if you have like a pistol backing it up that you can fan or something, but this weapon is not better than this weapon in close range, but this weapon is so much better in medium and long range than these weapons. Like these weapons literally do nothing at like 30 meters, unless it has slugs. So, and then even then it's not gonna one tap. So I think these are better than like these as a main weapon. It just depends on how you're wanting to back it up. It depends on your loadout, depends on how much money you're wanting to spend, and if you're a close range player or a long range player. But in this game, long range means you take less risk, like longer range. So if you stay at medium, long range, you'll end up having to deal with less nonsense. So I think these are stronger overall than like the Romero because trade windows and stuff like that. Not the preferred rifle, but it is a rifle, so it can it can do its job. This one has a scope on it. This is Springfield Marksman. I think Marksman is better than this, just straight up, because you only get one shot with both. The Marksman scope lets you zoom in and find heads a lot quicker. It allows you to pixel peek, all kinds of things. So I do think the Marksman variant is better. Still gets all the ammo bonuses if you want poison or anything like that. But still, it's a Springfield, so it's not going to be much higher than the regular. Next, we got the bow. The bow is pretty versatile. It gets frags and it gets conch ammo, which allows it to concertina an area further away from you. It's the only thing in the game that allows you to conch like an area far away. You can throw a conch bomb, but that at max goes like, 15 meters or something, 10 meters. While the bow allows you to pinpoint a position, 30, 40 meters away and conch it off if you need to, without actually having to be there yourself. It also has frag bombs, which allow you to put frags in unsuspecting places very quickly. They blow up very quickly, and one or two in a house, like a small wooden house or something, will generally kill the person in there. And then just the base version is pretty good. The regular base bow allows you to move around the map very quietly, very effectively. It allows you to grab clues really fast, stuff like that. It is only a medium slot weapon, which means you can quartermaster it, bring it with like a better rifle, something that reaches a little bit further. Or you can just bring it by itself and bring some other medium slot weapon like a Winfield, like a medium slot Winfield, or back it up with something that has a little bit more oomph like the Dolch P or something like that if you wanted, without even needing to have quartermaster. And it would still be a pretty good build. It's a very good close range option. One of its main weaknesses though is that you do have to draw it before you can fire. And to get the most out of your shot, you need to draw it back for a little while. And then if you want to hold the draw, it limits your movement. So if you're close range, you kind of want to be on the defensive with bow. You don't really want to be on the aggressive angles with bow because you're an easy target to hit. If you come around the corner and you're trying to shoot a bow, you really want to like pixel peek it. And if you're drawing the bow and they come around the corner, you're very slow and easy to hit. So it's just, you definitely want to be holding an angle, preferably about 10 plus meters away, and then wait for someone to come around. And most of the time, it'll outperform. The one reason why I think this is higher than some of these shotties is because it does not need slugs to compete with these, right? It already just base competes with these. So it does a decent amount of damage and causes bleed at a decent range without needing slugs, like without needing anything. You just equip the bow and you're good to go. But here, to do damage at the ranges that bow can do damage at, you need to buy slugs with these things. So it's a cheaper version and, in my opinion, a little bit better because it's stealthy, moving around the map. You don't have to find ammo all the time if you just bring the regular ammo because it has so many arrows. And you can pick up the arrows again. So it's just got a lot of advantages over the other medium slot close range alternatives. Next up, we got the carbines. There's going to be a little bit of personal opinion coming in here. But overall, I think so. I'm not a huge fan of these weapons. They are good. Don't get me wrong. They are good. They're probably better than like, I don't know. I don't know if they're better than that because that can lever. But they fire very, very quick. The main problem comes from you're really wanting to headshot with these, and there's just better weapons to headshot with, even at close range. And most of the time, when it comes to these weapons, I'd rather just have like an officer and then some other main hand. They're fun to bring, but they don't, in my opinion, reliably 2-tap. Sometimes you need a 3-tap a little bit more than a lot of these other weapons going up here. Reliably 2-tapping is huge in this game. It does fire really quick, but I've been at like 15 meters away from someone and have to hit them 3 times. And it happens like 30% of the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's pretty consistent on how often you have to 3-tap with these things. So you really want to hit headshot. The irons on the base version are horrible. That's why I put the Deadeye up here. The Deadeye needs that Deadeye Scopesmith to be able to keep up the fire rate, but it is a pretty good head clicker. This weapon in particular, pretty good head clicker, but it takes up your large slot weapon, and there's just so many better options in my opinion. More reliable, pen better, do more damage, all that kind of stuff. So I'm putting them down here. They could be a little bit higher. I think the base wind fields are better and stuff, and they're not that much higher. So I think we're okay here. It does get high velocity, very good weapon, and when it comes to head clicking in like close ranges, but most of the time you're going to be competing with slugs, you're going to be competing with bows, crossbows, stuff like that, and these weapons I think are a little lackluster to those. Those weapons will one-shot you to chest, while these will 2, sometimes 3-tap you to chest. Yeah, a little bit less reliable at compound ranges than I would say some of these other weapons. A little less useful. That said, none of these weapons in B tier are bad weapons in my opinion. I think they're very average. Like, they have some strengths, they have some weaknesses that kind of balance them. Not horrible. These are the horrible ones. They're just not as good as some of the weapons coming up. All right, this is Winfield Bayonet. The only reason I put it down here is it definitely feels like it fires a little clunkier than these weapons when it comes to like the aim punch and all that kind of stuff because of the bayonet on it. Plus it has a different levering. It has a different lever than these ones, in my opinion, for like the spread. And so for me, I just find this one to be like a little bit weaker, but it has a bayonet on it kind of version of these, and it falls into this Spectre Bayonets issue where it just feels like it's a little less good than the other versions, so you might as well just take the other versions, especially when they're around the same price. In fact, I think this one is more expensive than the regulars. So yeah, that would be the reason why that's there. That said, we got the new army coming up. It has a really slow muzzle velocity, but it fires very quick, and there's not a whole lot of recoil on it. I find the recoil to be a little bit better than the officer versions that are a little bit higher up. And it does considerably more damage to where it reliably 2-taps a lot more than the officer versions, but the officer versions are very quick. Like, both army and the officer versions, fire rate is very quick. And most of the time you're able to get a 3rd shot off with these anyways, and they're all single slots. And they're all around the same cost range. So I still think officers are better. They have higher muzzle velocity, all that kind of stuff. But this weapon has grown on me. It's definitely one of my favorite pistols to run in the game right now. Catches a lot of people off guard, and yeah, it's pretty good when it comes to being able to 2-tap someone before they 2-tap you. This pistol does not get fanning, by the way. All double action pistols or revolvers, or whatever you want to call it, don't get fanning. This is one of them. So you can't fan this, but it has a fast enough shot to where you don't really need to. Next up, we got the Paxes and we got the uppercut. The reason why I put the uppercut in between is I think they're all on pretty equal grounds. A lot of people would probably complain, and this might be one of the biggest contenders for this tier list, is putting the uppercut in B, kind of in the middle, and then around Pax. A lot of people might think Pax is worse. I'm just going to lay out, I have a lot of hours in this game, and I'm just going to lay out the knowledge I know about the uppercut and the Paxes. The uppercut, for those who don't know, is my favorite weapon in the game. I love this thing to death. They have nerfed it like 5 times, or I don't know exactly how many. I think they've nerfed it 3 to 4 times, if I'm being literal. It's been 3 or 4 nerfs since the gun came out, and they just keep hammering it, hammering it, hammering it, hammering it. It is very expensive. It is like $414 or something. So in relation, the army is like 90 or 100, and the Pax is like 110 or something. And then this is $400. So you think, why are you putting a $400 weapon next to these $100 weapons? Well, at most ranges, this weapon will outperform this weapon if you get used to it. Now, hear me out. A lot of people be sitting there like, no way, that's not happening. The uppercut fires slower than the Pax. So if an uppercut is versus a Pax at like 30 meters, you will get 2-tapped by this weapon faster than this weapon can 2-tap you, unless this weapon shoots way before, right? So they have to get first shot. Uppercut has to get first shot off on a Pax to be able to 2-tap before it. But if you shoot at the same time, this one will get a second shot, which means it beats that, right? On top of that, this weapon has a better fan. So if you have fanning, this weapon can fan too. But if you have fanning, this is more reliable on fan than this one is. Just straight up. Like, this one can be very wild on fan. Sometimes you'll hit, sometimes you won't. It does a decent amount of damage. That's the one thing it has going for it compared to most of these other pistols. It does the highest damage I can think of outside of like Sparks pistol for single slots. It does 126, I think, right now. It has high damage. 126. So that puts it in a little bit higher caliber than this at further ranges. But honestly, this is my honest take, honest opinion. I don't think you should be competing at long range with like Mosin and stuff like that with uppercut. You can shoot it and try to hit people at those ranges, but most of the time it'll leave you, especially if they're like an equal skill level to you, shooting a person who has a Mosin at like 90 meters with an uppercut, and then that Mosin firing back, like, it just outtrades you on damage. It's way more consistent at headshotting. It's way more accurate, has better irons. Like, it's crazy how much better the Mosin, and the Mosin's a 3-slot or a 2-slot if you go Obrez, while this is a single slot. But so many people call this the pocket rifle, and I do not think you should be competing against most of the rifles in this game with this weapon. Like, I think you're just at a strict disadvantage. So at the points at where this weapon becomes better than this weapon at further ranges, I think it's negligible, because you shouldn't even be competing with those weapons at those ranges. If someone's 140 meters away, you shouldn't be shooting at them with an uppercut anyways. And if you are shooting at them with an uppercut anyways, you might as well be shooting at them with a Pax. Like, it doesn't matter. At those kind of ranges, like, both of them aren't going to 1-tap headshot. If you want to go at like the 90-meter range where this 1-tap headshots, and I don't know if this does, this headshot range is a little bit under that. I still think within those like gray area ranges, I don't think it's enough to make up for the weaknesses this has, where in most fights these weapons outperform. This pistol is better in mid-range, but you find yourself in so many close range scenarios or so many longer range scenarios where you shouldn't be using either of them. And so I know I've went on a long tangent here, But basically I'm saying in close range, this weapon I feel is better in the current state. Plus it's like 1/4 the price of this weapon. I do think they're on pretty equal terms. So I think these weapons have a slight edge, but it's not enough to put this like strictly below, like over here. You know what I'm saying? Like some situations, some minute cases, I think uppercut is better. I don't find its strengths to be overwhelming, and I see its weaknesses. A really long reload, quite a bit of time in between 2 shots, all that kind of stuff, to kind of put it on the same level as Pax. I think people severely underestimate the Pax. Pax now gets poison and some other special ammo, which also puts it in a cool tier where like you hit someone with poison and they can't heal for a while if they don't have an antidote shot. Well, you don't have that option with uppercut. Uppercut is fire damage, which gets fire ammo, which does fire damage, and that doesn't really do anything for uppercut because 2 taps generally kill someone anyways with uppercut, which means if it takes 2 taps to light someone on fire, which it does with fire ammo, then you're lighting people on fire when they die. So it's kind of negligible, and it makes it so you can't pen. While like this one has a serviceable element, which is poison, where if you poison someone, it'll fuck their day up. Like they either have to run from you or hopefully potentially trade, right? So I think it has a more serviceable special ammo overall, even with the other options that uppercut has. All right, moving on from that, I do think that's one of the biggest contests. I know a lot of people would put uppercut higher. I know a lot of people might think uppercut is useful in a lot of builds because it gives extra ammo to really good weapons. I'm talking some of the best weapons in the game, and there's a ton of them where long rifles need extra ammo a lot of the times, and a lot of the best weapons in the game are long rifles. So you'll see this weapon paired with those weapons a lot, and a lot of people automatically assume that the weapon's just goated. But a lot of people are just using it for the extra ammo. And now that there's a pistol that gives you even more ammo for the long rifles, you're starting to see a lot of people just bring that pistol instead. Just to kind of show you that this pistol is kind of losing its luster compared to previous years, where the uppercut was, in my opinion, stronger than it is now. Next, we got the officers. These weapons are reliably cheap. Can 2-tap, sometimes they 3-tap, have a super fast fire rate, get high velocity, are only a single slot. They have so many advantages. I think this is one of the best pistols in the game, period. It follows up spark shots really well. It follows up martini shots really well. It follows up Mosin shots really well, Lebel shots. Like, it's just all around a very solid pistol. I think if you're starting the game, this is one of the best pistols in the game for you to play with. It will get you out of a lot of jams. It will outperform a lot of shotgun players in different instances where, like, if they're buckshotting and their RNG doesn't go right, you will kill them with your 2-tap before they kill you with a shotgun at 5 meters. Like, it's pretty crazy. Like, if their first shot doesn't kill you, you can pretty much kill them before they get another shot. Not all shotguns, just most. You know, Terminus with levering, which is a shotgun, fires pretty fast, and Crown and King fires pretty fast, but the officer is super fast. So I would just say definitely keep your eye on this pistol. This is one of the best pistols in the game. That's why it's kind of mid B tier and above these pistols. The fire rate of Pax is enough to kind of put it below these. Same thing with uppercut. Their fans are not as good as just being able to 2 and sometimes 3-tap opponents super quickly. Like, you catch someone out in the open, you can headshot, but you can also just 2-tap before they find cover. Like, it's crazy how good this weapon is. Very, very effective. It gets high velocity, which pairs it really well with like Winfields and things like that. Overall, great backup weapon. So here's the Winfields. I do think these are the C variants. I think this is the Aperture variant, actually. Let me make sure. Okay. This is the aperture variant. I think the aperture variant gets more ammo. I'm pretty sure it does. But these are C variants, which means they get less shots before they have to reload. They don't get the clip reload that Swift does and stuff like that. So in my opinion, it's not quite as good as the Winfield Swift, Winfield Talon, which do get, and the regular Winfield, which do get clip or like, it's not clip reloads, but just quick reloads and or a lot more shots before they have to reload. They all get high velocity. They're all pretty good. It's your standard rifle. The fire rate is pretty good. It can go up to 600 ms with high velocity, which makes it incredibly accurate, and it's a very head-clicky weapon. It also gets levering, which makes it fire even faster, but some RNG on it. But these are the C variants. Very, very cheap. I think it's one of the best rifles for beginning players to use because it allows you to kind of get into the rifle mindset without getting punished by huge amounts of money loss or anything like that. And I think it unlocks at level 1. I'm pretty sure it is unlocked at level 1, which makes it on the same unlock as like Springfield, but it gets so many more shots. It can lever, etc., etc. It's just so much better. So definitely one of the best rifles to start with, if not the best rifle to start with. Then we get the Sparks pistol. This is a decently new weapon. It was added not that long ago. It is a baby Sparks. It's a single slot, 149 damage long ammo weapon. Its muzzle velocity is a little less than the regular Sparks, but it's a decent backup to weapons that might be lacking some damage. For instance, the Krag. The Krag is a new weapon in the game that does 124 damage, which means it can't re-down after it's killed someone. If that person stands back up, gets full health, it will not kill them on body shot. But the Sparks pistol will. Plus, the Sparks pistol gives more ammo than the uppercut does to its weapons it's trying to support. So, if you're trying to support like a Mosin or Lebel or a Krag, or Berthier, any multi-shot long ammo rifle, I think you're better off with Sparks pistol than uppercut in a lot of situations. But uppercut is still not, if you like uppercut more, then you can pick uppercut over Sparks, and I wouldn't be like, oh, you're picking a worse weapon or something like that. Do you get what I'm saying? It's just like, they're both in the B tier. They're both great supports for long ammo rifles, but I think this one backs up multi-shot long ammo rifles a little bit better, and this one backs up single shot, like the Martini and Sparks, a little bit better. So it just kind of depends on, your loadout, what you're trying to go for, etc., etc. But this is a very consistent re-down weapon once you get those initial downs. Then we got the Bornheim match. This weapon does 2-tap compared to the other Bornheims. You'll see the other Bornheims are in C. This weapon does reliably I shouldn't say reliably, but it can potentially 2-tap. And for me, it has 2-tapped quite a bit. It gets high velocity. It's a pretty good head clicker. I think it's one of the best quartermaster weapons in the game. The only thing holding it back is that it does not get a lot of ammo. So if you bring this weapon in, you're going to be kind of hurting for ammo. Outside of that, the fire rate, the muzzle velocity, the damage, everything kind of matches up to where this weapon, I think, is one of the most undervalued weapons in the game, specifically because it needs quartermaster to be able to rock with like a lot of the other rifles. And most of the people that are rocking, expensive loadouts are already going to be rocking like Dolch or something like that, which is better than the Bornheim match. But Bornheim match is very good, and I think it's slept on by a lot of people. Next up, we got the Carabiner. I think this is the Carabiner. Just making sure. This is the Silent Carabiner. Silent Carabiner is decent. It's way better than these two silent weapons, in my opinion. It gets multiple shots. It does a little bit higher damage than the Winfield, but it doesn't do as much damage as the Sparks, but it gets like 5 more shots than the Sparks. It has way better irons as well. So it has some of the best irons in the game, honestly. I think it is the best, without a doubt. I think it's the best silent weapon in the game. And overall, the only thing it's lacking is that its muzzle velocity is kind of shit. You can put high velocity on it, but it's still pretty shit. So I wouldn't recommend bringing this weapon in for, like, you know, if you're not the stealthiest or someone who likes to flank people and stuff. This weapon tends to miss more than, you know, like regular carabiner. Then we got the Terminus, which can get levering. Levering makes this gun very fun. Without levering, it has a slow fire rate and stuff, so it definitely needs a perk to get the best out of it, which would be levered Terminus. Levering Terminus slugs is pretty strong. You wouldn't think it is, but it can consistently hit people that are, you know, within 10 meters of you 1 or 2 times, compared to, you know, levering, or I should say hip firing a bunch of other slugs. And you get so many tries so quickly because it's levering. So levering slugs is not the worst, honestly, on this. Same thing with buckshot, same thing with dragon's breath. Just, there's a lot of different ways to use this weapon, a lot of fun ways to use it, but without levering, it's kind of average when it comes to shotguns. Right next to it, we got the Slate. The Slate suffers from one thing, and that's it got classified as a smaller shotgun than the big shotguns. It's a medium barrel shotgun, whatever you want to say. It's not a medium slot. It takes up 3 slots, whatever you want to say. It is a long slot weapon, large slot weapon, but it is a medium shotgun, which means its slugs do less damage than the Spectre. They do less damage than the Crown. They do less damage than the Romero. So they're a little bit less consistent. And then the buckshot isn't going to hit as far or as reliably with its damage. So it's got a nice fire rate. It's got a nice sound to it. It's one of my favorite shotguns in the game. But it got classified as a medium shotty. They nerfed its damage a little bit, and it's not super reliable. Sometimes you can get some crazy kills off of it at crazy ranges. It's just most of the time you're not going to. Most of the time you'll end up trading with someone or shooting someone and thinking they should be dead, and then they're not, and then they kill you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just end up in a lot of situations where it's like, oof. But it's a fun shotgun. And it's in my opinion, definitely better than the Romero. Even though the Romero gets more damage and stuff like that. The Romero can reliably one tap, but it can basically only one tap, because if you don't one tap, you're probably dead. This one, if you can one tap, but if you don't one tap, you still have a fighting chance, especially with its fire rate. Its fire rate's pretty good. With Iron Devastator, it's even better, but you don't need it to be good. Next up, we got hand crossbow. This is a single slot weapon, and I think it is undervalued. I think this and Bornheim Match are probably the most undervalued weapons when it comes to the general player base's take on weapons. The hand crossbow, I think it can one-shot body shot up to like 17 meters. It's very, very far. With the crossbow trait that speeds up the reload, makes it even better. Plus, it can get poison cloud ammo, whatever you want to say. It's not quite poison ammo. It does poison damage, but it doesn't just like hit someone and then kind of disappear, leave a little puff. It leaves a cloud for a decent amount of time to allow you to outmaneuver. If you kill someone, you can poison them and then know that they're probably not getting up without an antidote shot anytime soon. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just allows for quick mobility. You can close off entrances. You can do all kinds of stuff very quickly from a distance with poison ammo. It's a lot more useful than people think it is. But even without that, just the basic ammo, like I said, very good. It's basically like a one-shot pocket slug that's also silent. So it's good for moving around the map efficiently, quickly, stuff like that. Very, 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 very good side weapon. Very cheap. Really good to use with like rifles, multi-shot rifles. If you're bringing a carabiner or a Winfield or something like that, not a bad cheap alternative to those weapons. I do struggle a little bit putting it above officer, specifically because I think they kind of compete in similar ranges. It's just the potential to one tap with this weapon up to like 17 meters does kind of push it a little bit further as a good backup option than these, because none of these other ones reliably one tap at pretty much any range. This is like a 2-tap, maybe a 3-tap, but this can one tap chest. Doesn't even need to be headshot at pretty far ranges, so I would recommend giving it a go. Next up, we got the Sparks and the Martinis. They are basically equal, in my opinion, on how good they are. They are pretty good. This is Ironside Sparks. These are 2 Martinis with scopes. The reason why I put these in B tier is because this Sparks is definitely worse. I'll probably put it up here, but this Sparks is definitely worse than Spark Sniper. Spark Sniper is a lot better in quite a few cases, specifically because you get this huge scope. You only have one shot, but it's a lot easier to make that shot count when you can see someone 10 times closer. So I do think Spark Sniper is the better version of these two. The only time you'd want to bring this one in is if you're not feeling Spark Sniper, don't want to play with a scope, something like that. Not to say that this version, the Iron Sight version, is bad. It's got good muzzle velocity. It does 149 damage. The only thing is it does have a long reload, so it's not the best weapon to have at close range unless you have a very quick reloading weapon backing it up. Or just a weapon that can fire a lot. So like if you have a chain pistol backing it up, because you shoot this and you shoot this, right? You're going to have to reload this weapon before you shoot it again. So you're going to be relying on your secondary. So like, let's say you go Sparks upper and you shoot Sparks, you hit him, but it doesn't kill. So you switch to your upper, you shoot him again. You now only have 5 shots in your uppercut before, you know, like let's say their teammates are pushing you, then you only have 5 shots in your uppercut to deal with them. Let's say those teammates are going for a res on the guy you killed. You only have your uppercut to down those people going for res. Like, I'm not saying uppercut is the worst option. I'm just saying these weapons, if you go Sparks upper, you kind of want to sit a little further back because of the long reload times on both weapons. It just makes it to where it's definitely more of like a medium ranged loadout. Well, like if you pop a conversion pistol with it, you can kind of get closer because you can rely on fanning. You don't have to reload this thing for a long time. And so you can consistently only have to focus on reloading your Sparks. But yeah, just throwing it out there that if you go into close range with Sparks, irons, you probably want to bring a pistol that either has a ton of shots before it needs to reload or reloads quick. And that's why I think Pax is probably a little bit better option for Sparks than Uppercut, because it can still do decent damage at ranges, but it has a faster reload than Uppercut. I still don't think it's the best option for Sparks, but I'm just saying I do think that Sparks Pax is probably better in compound fights than Sparks Upper. And Sparks Upper is better outside compound fights. Do you see what I'm saying? That said, moving on. Oh, I didn't talk about the Martinis. The reason why these are down here is because I like, for a Martini, you can use the scopes. The scopes aren't bad, but it's got a slow bullet. So just because you lined it up properly doesn't mean the bullet will get there in time to kill the person before they move or do something. So I don't think playing Martini super long range is very viable. You can do it. It's just not going to net you a lot of wins or a lot of kills or whatever. Compared to, let's say, like a Spark Sniper or a faster scoped weapon like Mosin or Labelle or something like that, where I think the Martini is definitely, it's got a faster reload than the Sparks, but still does really chunky damage. So in my opinion, I think the Martini is better played a little bit closer if you want to play a single shot long ammo rifle and be aggressive, like be able to play inside compounds a little bit more effectively. I think Martini is the way to go there than Sparks because of Sparks' long ass reload. If you're on a team, it doesn't matter as much. So I'm just throwing it out there. I do think Sparks is better long range, Martini better a little bit closer range. Obviously not optimal at super close range though, because you're going up against shotguns and stuff. Next we got Obrez's. We got Obrez Drum, Obrez Mace. The reason why these are down here in the B tier is because I don't think they're as good as the other Obrez. I can put this up here just to showcase where I think the Obrez's are kind of, but you really don't have any reason to bring these in. You can bring them in for fun, but there's just not really any reason to bring them in. So I think it puts it on a different level because it's like you just kind of want to bring the base version. The reason why I say the base version is because there's a lot of sway on these things, and the least amount of sway is going to be on this version. So if you're going for headshots and stuff, this is definitely the better one to try to line them up with. They still have a ton of sway though, so you're basically going to just be going for more body taps. But I do think these weapons are very good backup weapons for a lot of different options for shotguns, stuff like that. This is the pocket rifle that everybody likes to associate with the uppercut. It does massive damage, can read down after someone's already been down, no matter what health chunk they lose, all that kind of stuff. So like Mosin, this could be right here, but I'm putting it down here just to say you don't ever really need this. And I'll talk more about the Obrez's up here. The Obrez Drum gets a larger mag, but it gets 0 extra ammo. So do with that as you will. I don't find it to be very efficient for getting more ammo from ammo boxes and stuff like that. Bring it if you want, but I don't think it does anything of value. It's kind of the Spectre bayonet of Obrez's. Same thing with like this one, but it's close enough to this one where I'll just put it next to it. Bomb Lance. Bomb Lance is the best melee in the game. All right, ladies and gents. It is easily the best melee in the game. It has the furthest, it at least, I shouldn't say compete, it at least reaches the max distance that melee can reach around you. It has a massive swing. It does a ton of damage. Easy one shot with light attack, easy one shot with heavy attack. It also can fire something, so it's not just a melee. Right now, it got 2 new ammo types with the update that just happened, which is steel balls and fire lance ammo, which just lights people on fire. But the regular like sticky portion can be deadly here and there. And then the ball lance is a lot better than the other variants in my opinion. It basically puts like a Romero shot on your bomb lance. So you get the best melee with a little added bonus. The only difference, in my opinion, one of the only differences, is that this is not as reliable at like 15 meters to one shot, and it can't pen. So the Romero can pen at least a little bit through some things. The ball lance cannot. The ball lance gets stopped by everything. So that does put it a little bit worse than the Romeros, but everything else about it is just better. With flashes being in the game, this is a super deadly weapon. I think it's very unfair if you're in a building with this weapon. I'm just throwing it out there that this weapon is very, very good. I think people underrate how good the bomb lance is, and now with steel ball ammo, it's even better. Next to it, we got the Spitfire. I personally think you guys are probably like, why is the Spitfire up here and the Scottfields are down here? I personally think this is one of the best pistols in the game, primarily because I put it over a lot of these other weapons, primarily because it has a fast fire rate. It also can fan. It's not a double action revolver or whatever. So it can fan, has a decent fire rate, and consistently 2-taps. It's the one thing Officer struggles with, is it doesn't really consistently 2-tap. It can 2-tap, but you're just kind of leaving it up to, the hunt gods if you're going to 2-tap or 3-tap with this weapon. And you can't fan this. But then it also, It's such a solid weapon. Its damage carries further than the officers. It has good irons. It has good stability. Just all around. The only thing I think stopping this from being even higher on the list is its muzzle velocity. It's got very slow muzzle velocity, so it's very much a backup weapon for semi-close range for rifles like Carabiner or Centennial or something like that. But it does its job very, very well. I also think this is a great pair for shotguns. If you're not going to bring a fanning pistol like Pax or something like that, I think, or I mean, if you're not going to bring uppercut as well for shotguns, then I think this is a solid backup option. Yeah, just all around, does everything you want and does it consistently. It's very consistent. Crossbow. I think a lot of people have been figuring out how good this weapon is. It is very, very good. It's basically like built-in base. It's basically a one-shot slug shotgun that kills even further, except it doesn't pen. But if you hit with it, it causes major bleed if it doesn't already outright kill. Very, very strong weapon. And that's not even all it's got going for it. It also has shot bolt ammo, which can pen, does one shot. That is basically, or I should say, a one-shot slug shotgun that kills even like super duper far ranges. And then it has explosive ammo, and it has, in my opinion, the best explosive ammo in the game. It has a huge AoE, does a ton of damage, can one-shot. Yeah, just incredible all around. Whether you're using special ammo, regular ammo, this weapon is to be feared at close range. Don't underestimate it. And you get all that power, everything I just mentioned, for like $50. I think it's like $50 hunt dollars to buy this weapon. So in my opinion, bang for buck, this is the best close range weapon in the game without a doubt. At being $50, that is insane value. While like to compete with it, well, I should say it is a one shot, so it's kind of like Romero, but with bolt thrower, it speeds up its reload animation, and it speeds it up enough to where it just seems to fire fast enough. It's very, very good. Don't underestimate it. Definitely best bang for buck close range weapon. In my eyes. Super, super unfair in some situations. All right, moving on. We got the regular Winfields. These are not the C variant, so they have more ammo capacity, more shots to lever, more shots to just straight up fire. Pretty good handling and stuff comparatively to the other ones. So all around, it costs a little bit more, but they're very good. High velocity makes this extremely versatile, deadly weapon. Same with levering as well, to where it can it's kind of like an all-in-one rifle, where it can semi-compete at close range with like shotguns with levering, headshotting through a wall, you know, penning a wood wall or something, you know what I'm saying? Like it has potential to do a lot. It's just, it's not as consistent as some of the rifles you're going to see above it, where some of the rifles above it are way more consistent at two-tapping or re-downing someone after they went down. I think the damage for the Winfields is 110. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's pretty low comparatively to, let's say, even like the Krag, which is 124 damage. So it's compact ammo, which means the damage doesn't carry very far, but it's a headshot machine. I wouldn't underestimate it. I think the Winfield is still really good in this game. Bang for buck, especially. They're very cheap weapons. But yeah, overall, great weapon. And sometimes very unfair with levering. Centennial. Centennial is basically in the same ballpark as the Winfield. Just think of everything the Winfield could do, except it's medium ammo, which means the damage carries a little bit further, and it fires a little less fast. So it's a little bit slower. Outside of that, it struggles with a lot of the same things these weapons do, but also succeeds in a lot of ways these weapons do. So I think it's a little bit better just because of the more consistent two-tapping damage and stuff like that than these versions. But the Winfield Swift is still probably going to be higher than it just because of the fire rate. Levering is better, more shots, etc., etc. So that's where the Senti is going to go. This is the Centennial 2. This must be the Centi. Oh, this is the Trauma. Okay. Basically, take everything I said and put it to this weapon. This is Centi Trauma, which is the melee Centennial. It can be fun to run, but it struggles with the same thing Romero Talon does, where it's a very long windup. It's clunky. It when it comes out, it can hit walls and stuff like that. The melee for Centi Trauma. So it's not the most reliable thing in the world to kill people with. It does a lot of damage, but it's just not that reliable. So I think the regular Centi, which is less money, I believe, is just a little bit more consistent, less sway, stuff like that. So I would definitely pick this one over that one, but they're on similar levels. Next, we got Carabiner. I do think Carabiner is better than Centennial because of its damage. Centi has muzzle velocity over it, which matters quite a bit. But that damage is just so consistent with Carabiner. It is basically a mini... It's basically the baby Mosin. So if you think of anything you like about the Mosin, or if you've ever used the Mosin in this game, it's very consistent on its damage. It has decent irons. It has a decent fire rate. It has a decent reload rate. Like, all these things. It basically does everything the Mosin does, just slightly worse. Worse muzzle velocity. I think it has around the same damage. It's probably just slightly worse. And think of it as a miniature Mosin. If you ever want to play the off-brand Mosin or the medium version of the Mosin, I think it is the Carabiner. And the Mosin's one of the best, if not the best weapon in the game. So that makes it pretty damn good. It is very consistent. And I think this is the second or first best rifle for beginners, competing with the Winfield, because it's also pretty cheap. It just can't lever. And the irons, some people don't like the irons compared to the Winfield. But overall, the Carabiner is just an all-around solid rifle. Then we got Centi Snipe. I put it a little bit above Carabiner, specifically because its reach is just a little bit further than most of these, where Centi Snipe can just hit shots that these ones can't at, 150 meters a little bit more consistently. It's got the muzzle velocity for it. And if you're staying that far away from your opponent, there's not much they can do against you unless they also have scopes or try to rush you down or something. So if you play this efficiently, I think it's better than these, better than the Carabiner and better than the regular version of Centi. But if you're playing in like compounds, playing close, playing aggressive, then I think you want to go with the basic Centennial. Next, we got Winfield Swift. Think of everything the Winfield does, except it gets a faster reload. It's a phenomenal weapon. Anything I've said about the Winfield applies to this weapon, except it's just faster. It's got a faster reload. So it's very, very good. Very, very good. Next up, we got the Caldwell Rival. This is the best, in my opinion, one of the best bang for buck shotguns in the game. You get 2 shots. They fire very quickly. Phenomenal weapon. Very unfair up close for how early you unlock it, how cheap it is, and how good it is at close range. It's so good at hitting the trade windows and stuff with both shots, so you're very likely to trade with this weapon within its ranges. The only problem with it is that its reach isn't as far as some other shotguns or the crossbow. So if you know you're up against Caldwell Rival, without slugs, you can kind of outrange it at like 15, 16 meters with crossbow, and it'll make these people feel like they're inadequate. Like they just can't do anything to you if you just keep them at that kind of distance. Now, if they bring slugs, it's a little bit more competition with crossbow, and you'll probably end up trading at some point. But yeah, there's just some weapons that can kind of punish the base version of this. So slugs are a better version, but then it becomes a little bit more pricey. So it just depends on what you want to do with that. But all around, very strong shotgun, very consistent in its results. Spectre, I think this is the best shotgun outside of Crown and King. It gets all the long shotgun bonuses, so it's not considered a medium shotgun like the Slate is. It is, and the Caldwell Rival, this one's considered a medium as well. So it gets the big slugs, it gets the highest damaging slugs. It also does has a smaller spread for its spray on buckshot, and it kills at further ranges than the Caldwell rival. So it's just all around a little bit more consistent. The only problem is it fires 2 shots a little bit slower than the Caldwell rival. But outside of that, it beats it in everything, and it still can fire 2 shots pretty fast, and it can fire 3 shots faster than the Caldwell rival. So it just depends on what you're going for. Both these weapons are very good, but this one I would say has the edge in most scenarios. Next, we got Basic Martini and the Ironside, and then Martini Riposte. All these weapons you can kind of put wherever you want. They're all very similar. I would say Ironside is really, really good, but if you're playing in that aggressive, like fast-paced, close action kind of scenario where you're like in a building with someone, I would take the Riposte over this. But if you're just playing like in a compound, 30, 40 meters away, I'd probably take the Ironside over it. So it just depends on what you're looking for, but this is where the best Martinis kind of land. They do a ton of damage. I think it's 143. So it's a very consistent 2-tap with pretty much any other weapon in the game. A lot of the times people would just flat out die to it. If they've died once, they will die to it to a body shot. Like it's just... It redowns, it's got a nice reload, really good irons. It's just a very consistent weapon. Then coming up next, we got the Obrezes. We kind of talked about them down here, but we'll talk about them a little bit more. I think basically like a Martini, it's close to a Martini, but you get more shots, where it does everything the Martini does in close range, where it's like pretty high damage. It can definitely redown after someone's been downed. It has a clip reload. It fires 5 shots before you need to. Fast fire rate. Like it's just a phenomenal weapon. It's decently expensive, but overall, good pen, good damage carry over long distances because it's long ammo. Phenomenal, phenomenal weapon. Honestly, I would say unless you're going for price, even in long slot, these are medium slot weapons. Even for the long slot position, this is competing for it, even though you can carry it in the 2 slot. Like it's competing against Martini and stuff and still outperforms it in some scenarios. So like the Obrezes are phenomenal. Don't underestimate them. Next up, we got the Krag. The only thing that stops the Krag from going into S is that it does 124 damage. Phenomenal weapon. Phenomenal weapon. Very, very, very good. But it does 124. It's the only long ammo weapon that doesn't consistently redown if someone's been downed. But that said, that doesn't take away all the benefits long ammo gives it, and it gets a fast fire rate. So kind of like how I said the Carabiner is kind of the miniature Mosin. It's the medium ammo Mosin. I think the Krag is the buffed up Winfield. So Krag is very new. It doesn't have as many shots as like Winfield Swift, but the fire rate kind of feels like Winfield, but it has higher muzzle velocity. It has higher damage. It headshots further. So overall, I think it's just a beefcake Winfield. Take with that what you will. These are just my thoughts. Coming up next, we got the SSSs and the S. These are all the majorly broken weapons in the game. As you can see, this is where most of the weapons people are using at the higher tiers are. You got your Labels, you got your Crown and Kings, you got your Nitros, you got your Avtos. Why don't we get started? Crown and Kings at the bottom because I think it has less potential than most of these other weapons. Even with slugs, it's dominant in close range, but it's not going to outperform pretty much any of these at like 30 plus meters. So... well, it might outperform Spark Sniper at 30 meters, but let's say like 40 to 50 meters, this gun doesn't outperform any of these. So it's going to be at the bottom of S. It's the best shotgun in the game, though. It's way better than all these weapons going up here, pretty much. You put slugs in it, it's dominant. If you have buckshot, it's very good at aim punching someone and making their shot miss, and then you can just rush them down. all around, the only weakness it has is that it has range drop off. It's a shotgun, so at certain ranges, it just isn't effective anymore. You can still aim punch with it though, which makes it a little bit better than some of these other weapons. But it's semi-automatic. It's a semi-automatic shotgun. Very good, very good, very good. And it's pretty reliable. More reliable than I think people give it credit for. Then we got the Sparks Sniper. The Sparks, like I said, kind of wants to sit a little further back than some of the other weapons. It feels a little bit more comfy, a little bit further back. And the sniper scope allows it to sit further back and still be consistent. It has decent muzzle velocity, so it can catch up to people pretty quick. And it does incredible damage just to their chest, even at really far ranges. But then it can also tap their head for that instant KO. And then if they go down, you can re-down them forever with this weapon. And from like super far distances as well. So overall, if you play very patient, methodical, that sniper roll kind of sitting back, it's the cheapest, kind of just barely off meta sniper, if that makes sense. It's the it's not the absolute meta comp for sniper rifles, but if you want to play something a little bit different, but still as not as effective, but still as oppressive as those snipers, then go Spark Sniper. Or I should say feels as oppressive to the players you're going up against. Then we got the Berthies. We got a couple Berthies here. These are the Iron Sight Berthies. I put them a little bit lower than Mosin and LeBeau, specifically because of their reload. They only shoot 3 shots, then they got to reload, and then the reload is decently slow compared to like the Mosin clip reload and stuff. They do good damage. They have decent irons. Their muzzle velocity is a little bit lower than LeBeau's and Mosin's as well, but still, they're long ammo. They re-down consistently. Very good weapons. I do put the Berthier Deadeye a little bit higher than these because it gives it a little bit more range, and any long ammo rifle at range can only really be taken down by other long ammo rifles at range. You know, that can't compete with it. So if you have like a Berthy Deadeye, for instance, and you're sitting, I don't know, 100 and something, let's say like 180 meters away or something, they can compete with other, you know, like iron sight rifles, but you should probably be able to beat these out in most scenarios, unless they're playing crazily and slowly gaining on you while you're not backing up or something. But like LeBeau Marksman and Mosin Sniper are just going to outperform. Then we got all the iron sights. Here's the LeBeau, here's the Mosin Bayo, and then here's the regular LeBeau, and here's the Mosin Regular. I think Mosin Regular is better than Mosin Bayonet, specifically because of the sway. The Mosin Bayonet adds a little bit more sway to your shot. This one is just it just beams. Like it's a straight shot. If you line it up, it shoots the bullet where you want it. And if you have good aim, it's very consistent. It re-downs, it 2-taps. It just does everything you want a rifle to do, and it does it at extremely far ranges. It does more damage than LeBeau. It's like 136, and LeBeau is like 132 or something. It has a clip reload, which makes it a little bit better than LeBeau, but LeBeau is very close to it. But that said, both of these variants just add a little bit more sway to the weapons, so I think they're inferior to the main standard stock weapons. I do think LeBeau and Mosin are extremely close, but when it comes to iron sights, I think Mosin Iron is king still. I don't think any of the new weapons or anything has dethroned it. This is your best bang for buck iron sight long ammo rifle. Why this one is probably like a percentage or two less than the Mosin, if that makes sense. So like, let's say this is your best in slot iron sight rifle. This is your second best iron slot rifle, and it's like a 98% if this is a full 100%. Does that make sense? Like, they're very close, guys. These weapons are basically interchangeable, and the LeBeau is cheaper and unlocks earlier. So do with that as you will. if you want to place this above that because it unlocks earlier, it's cheaper, and still very much on par, you can. But in game, this does fire a little bit faster. Its irons are a little bit better in my opinion, and it has the clip reload. So outside of game, you know, extenuating circumstances, Lobel's probably better. And then inside of a match, I think Mosin is a little bit more dominant, even though both these weapons are extremely dominant. Then we got the Dolches. This is the best single slot weapon in the game. It reliably 2-taps, has high muzzle velocity, has clip reload, fires 10 shots before it needs to reload. But yeah, just all around great weapon. The Dolch P is the better of the two, but it needs Quartermaster. So depending on how you want, if you have Quartermaster, don't have Quartermaster, but this is the best sidearm in the game currently. It's also very expensive, but it just depends on what you're going for. Then we get to the S tiers. You've probably been looking at them since we scrolled up and saw them. Or I should say the triple S tier. These are the weapons that I think are broken in most circumstances and definitely oppressive. Like they make you have to think about your opponent and how to play them differently than all the other weapons down here. And the reason why I say that is like Avto, you can't have pennable material between you and Avto because they can just spray you through it. So sometimes it happens where you only have a wooden fence blocking you from an Avto spray, and it's like, well, you're probably just gonna die to it spraying the wooden fence and killing you. This is the best surprise weapon in the game. So if you're ambushing someone and you have an Optimat, the chance of full wiping their entire team like instantly is very high. It is a very good weapon. Fires 15 shots, fully automatic. This is the only fully automatic gun in the game. Its shot is not like 100% consistent. It doesn't always shoot middle of your screen like a lot of these other I shouldn't say middle of your screen, but middle of the reticle that a lot of these other weapons do, especially other rifles. It has some RNG on where it goes, but it's a pretty tight little thing. And if you aim at someone's feet, the kick from the shots as you're firing this fully automatic rifle will kick you up into them. And it's a 3-shot burst, so you can go 1, 2, 3. And there's a good chance the second or third does end up headshotting or body tapping or at least hitting him somewhere. So it is more reliable than people think. And it's also just very good at killing shotgun players that are behind walls. Just because you get more shots to try to wall bang them and stuff like that. Why they have to be a little bit more conserving of their ammo, and they have to be a little bit they have to space their shots a little bit further apart. Like even Crown of King, you know, you shoot once, if you don't hit, it's like, okay, I move over here and shoot again. While the Opto can just go and clear the entire area. So it's definitely the best wall banging weapon, or most consistent wall banging weapon in the game, where if you think someone's in a corner or someone's in a general area, you just spray it and see if you get the hits. Overall, very oppressive in compounds. It's the most oppressive if you get ambushed by it, because it can wipe your team super duper quickly. And that's why it's in the triple S. Then we got Nitro. The best ammo for it is Nitro Shredder. And basically just think, whenever we're talking about slug shotguns, how it extends ranges and stuff like that, Nitro Shredder is basically the ultimate slug shotty. It is a rifle, but it one-shot body shots with Shredder ammo up to like 74 meters. So they can be really far, and it covers most compounds, and you'll still body shot them. It's crazy strong, crazy overpowered. It has decent muzzle velocity. It has really good pen. Nitro Shredder has less pen than regular Nitro, but it still has really good pen. Can pen most things, multiple surfaces, all that kind of stuff. It is phenomenally good. It is the king of compound fight weapons, in my opinion. And if you're on a team, it's so oppressive. So oppressive, because your teammates can kind of lock people to corners, and then you just hold that corner. until the person decides to move, and then you just shoot them, and they die. They die. Like, it's Shredder. Even if they don't die to Nitro Shredder, on the first hit, let's say they get lucky, it gets an arm hit or something like that, they get bleed put on them because Shredder makes people bleed. So it's basically all the pluses of like crossbows and slug shotties and everything put into a rifle, and it just expands on it by making it super deadly all the way up to like 74 meters, which is insane. 73, 74 meters, somewhere around there. So these weapons are the weapons to look out for in compounds. Very, very scary weapons. If you hear them, you definitely need to plan around them and be like, okay, how do I kill, the Nitro player? Is he, looking my way? Is he aiming at me? Is he aiming at this angle? Blah, 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 blah. Do you see what I'm saying? And try to bait some of his shots. But more often than not, these weapons will beat every other weapon here, given the same skill and experience to the players. Like, same skilled player versus same skilled player. You put a shotgun in their hand or you put Nitro Shredder in their hand, Nitro Shredder should win pretty much 100% of the time. I'm going to say like 90% of the time, though. And it's kind of that way with most of these weapons. And then the top of the top, we are at the end of the tier list. These are the best weapons in the game, is Mosin Snipe and Lebel Marksman. You'll see down here, I put Mosin before Lebel. Up here, I am putting Lebel before Mosin. I think Lebel Marksman is the best weapon in the game. You can play it 100% safe, where the only other weapons that can kind of combat you are like Mosin Snipe, Spark Snipe, where you sit hundreds of meters away and take pot shots at people until you land a few shots, get a couple kills, maybe kill a bounty, and then wait till their friends leave their body because they'll never get a res on the person because they're, you're just sitting there zoomed in, scoped on them, and they can't even compete at the ranges that you're fighting. They can't headshot you and one-shot you. Some of them will have Winfields or Caldwell Rivals or something like that, and their ranges just can't compete at 200 meters with these weapons. So these weapons played at max distance, or I should say the optimal playstyle for these weapons, not even these weapons can really touch them. Where these weapons technically can, like Nitro Shredder can technically headshot at like 250 meters. Avto can headshot, I think, even further than that. But it's just so unlikely that you'll get a headshot with these weapons compared to these at, 200 meters, that you're basically playing a losing game at those ranges, and it just can't compete. So if you play the sniper playstyle, sit really far back, nothing here stands a chance except other long ammo like Spark Sniper, Mosin Irons maybe, and most of the time you're just trying to flick and like either headshot or body shot them so they have to heal, and then you can move up a little bit and get into a better position, and then hit them again and then get up to a little bit better position. But if these guys are playing optimally, like I said, then they get hit, they're just going to fall back. They'll fall back another 60 meters and you'll still be at the same distance even after they've healed. But this time they'll get to peek you first, because just the way it works in Hunt is where, like, if you shoot at someone and they disappear behind a mound or something like that, you don't know if they're still on that mound, and you're still checking as you're pushing up, right? And so they could potentially still be on that mound and peek you left or right, and it keeps your focus on that mound. But they could disappear behind the mound and then re-peek you from a different angle that you didn't see them rotate to, because you're focused on the mound, because that's where they last were seen and could still peek you from. And then they shoot you from that other angle and you're dead. And that's what I'm saying is, like, playing at the optimum play style with these weapons is super hard to combat, and I would recommend running away from those players if you just don't want to deal with it or reward that play style. So if you have bounty I highly recommend not chasing these players and just extracting. I don't think it's worth the kill that you get on them, but that kind of play style is super annoying, super hard to take down, and the best way to play the game, period. And these weapons are what kind of allow it. Those weapons with Spark Sniper. The only reason I put Spark Sniper in S and not in SSS is because it's a one-shot, so it still has a huge gap of time in which people can close distance or try to close distance, even if you don't get shot. So like, let's say you don't get shot and you shoot with sparks, you kill one, but the other two teammates are moving up. Well, you still have to reload your gun to start killing the other two, right? But let's say you trade on that first one. Now you have to heal. You trade shots, I should say. So you kill him and he hits you. Now you have to heal and reload your gun before they, as they're pushing. And that's all super valuable time. And so it has a major weakness where if it gets hit, you get a ton of time to push up on this guy and figure out exactly where he's going. And you know that he's not going to probably peek for a little while around, whatever mound, because his gun still isn't loaded. Now, if he has an uppercut or something, he could try flinging one of those out, but he has just as much chance to hit you at 180 meters with the uppercut as you do hitting him with a Mosin or something like that. So it's a little bit more fair. Do you see what I'm saying? While these weapons, they can fire multiple shots. They have pretty fast reloads. They get Spitzer. They're just so oppressive. So now with that said, we can take a look one more time over the entire tier list. Hopefully those explanations help you guys out if you're new to the game. If you're experienced to the game, you probably don't need that and you're just wanting my take, in which case you'll probably skip to this side of the video. And this is where the weapons fall for me. My opinion has changed a little bit over the years for a few weapons, but for the most part, a lot of these weapons have kind of stayed where I initially put them. So I'm really happy with this tier list. I'm still happy with some of my old tier lists, especially with the balancing that was there and the weapons that were available. If you want to win the game, that's your ultimate, you want to make it out alive with a lot of kills, potentially bounty, you definitely want to go in with these weapons, the S and SSS weapons. If you want to play a little bit more fair of a game where there's some give and take, but they're still very good weapons, you definitely want to play like these weapons. If you want to play a game where you're kind of a little bit of an underdog, but not so bad that it's kind of like a 40-60 chance that you win, where you're the 40 and your opponent's the 60 if they have these weapons. You kind of want to go these weapons. And then if you want to play a 20-80% chance kind of game, where it's you have a 20% chance of winning and they have an 80% chance of winning, then you kind of want to go these. And if you want to 10% chance of winning, 90% chance of your enemy winning, then you can probably go these. If you're way better than your opponent, just knowledge of the compound and stuff, you can get a lot of kills with all these weapons. It's not about that. It's about equally skilled opponents, and they have some of these weapons, or probably some of these. These are the most consistent weapons, I would say, on the maps. You see a lot of these weapons most of the time. And this is specifically why you do see these weapons. They're more consistent. They have faster fire rates. They do more damage. They have higher muzzle velocity. They pen better. They one-shot, body shot further. That's why you see these weapons a lot, is people like playing with them because they get more kills with them because they're just better weapons. I'm not saying you can't get kills with these weapons. Just saying that these weapons overall are going to get you more wins if you consistently bring them in than these weapons. I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched the entire video and stuff, thank you. And I will catch you guys around, all right? Cheers. I'll see you later.